My sister planned her wedding on my baby shower. She yelled, "You're not special just because you're pregnant." Even my mother said, "You can always have another shower." I looked her in the eye and said, "You'll regret making me feel invisible." And then, on the day of the ceremony. From the moment I told my family I was pregnant, I knew something had shifted, but I couldn't have predicted how bad it would get. I didn't think my pregnancy would spark resentment, least of all from my younger sister, Simone, or indifference from my own mother. But it did. The minute I started showing, it was like Simone couldn't stand to look at me. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe it was just a weird phase or that she had something else going on. But then came the baby shower planning, and that's when things really blew up. My best friend Dana offered to throw me a baby shower. We were so excited we picked the date, April 6th, checked in with the important people, and everyone, including my mom and Simone, confirmed they could make it. Then 2 weeks later, Simone casually announced that she was getting married. On the exact same day. I thought she'd made a mistake. But no, she picked that date on purpose, without a second thought for me or my plans. When I asked her about it, she didn't even pretend to be sorry. She just waved it off like I was being overly sensitive. "You can reschedule," she said. When I told her how hurtful that was, how she knew the baby shower was already planned, she smirked and said, "You're not special just because you're pregnant." The worst part? My mom took her side. She literally said, "Well, weddings are more important. You can always have another shower." I sat there, stunned, feeling like I'd been slapped. I looked Simone right in the eye and said, "You'll regret making me feel invisible." And from that moment on, I knew I had to do something, not to ruin her wedding, but to remind her that she doesn't get to bulldoze people just because she wants the spotlight. That conversation at my mother's dining table, with lukewarm coffee and barely touched breakfast plates between us, is burned into my memory. The tension in the room was thick. I remember sitting straight up in my chair, trying to maintain some sense of calm, but my hands were shaking under the table. I was 6 months pregnant and barely sleeping as it was, and now here was my sister, throwing a grenade into the only celebration meant for me and my unborn child. "Are you seriously not going to change the date?" I asked her, my voice calm but sharp. Simone didn't even look up from her phone. "It's already booked. I'm not rescheduling the venue just because you're having a gender reveal and some cupcakes." I clenched my jaw. "It's not a gender reveal. It's my baby shower. You said you'd come. You knew the date." She shrugged and tossed her phone onto the table, like this conversation was boring her. "Well, things change." My mom chimed in, pouring herself more coffee like nothing was wrong. "Nora, don't make this into a big drama. Weddings take months to plan. You can always have another baby shower." "I can't believe you're siding with her," I said, blinking fast to keep from crying. "You both agreed to the date. Dana's already sent out invitations." "There's a whole event planned, then move it," Simone interrupted, looking directly at me for the first time. "You're not special just because you're pregnant." That's when I felt the heat rise up my neck. It wasn't just about the event anymore. It was about me, about being steamrolled and dismissed again. I leaned forward, my voice low but steady. "You'll regret making me feel invisible." After that brunch, I didn't speak to Simone for a few weeks. I didn't answer my mother's calls either. I needed space. I needed to figure out how to respond without stooping to someone's level. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't just hurt, I was angry. Furious, actually. Simone had always been the star. The fun one, the pretty one, the one who was always encouraged to chase her dreams no matter how impractical. I'd been the responsible one, the reliable one. The one who paid her own way through college and helped clean up family messes. I didn't need the spotlight. I never wanted it, but this time I wanted my moment. Just once. So I sat with that anger. And eventually, it stopped burning and started focusing. I didn't want to ruin Simone's wedding. That wasn't the goal. But I did want her to know what it felt like to be pushed aside, to have your joy dismissed like it was an inconvenience. I started by reaching out to Dana. Do you still want to throw the shower? I asked. Of course, she said. I never canceled it. That caught me off guard. You didn't? Nope. I've got a backup plan. Just say the word. I smiled, finally feeling like I had some sort of power again. Let's do it. So Dana and I kept the baby shower date. Quietly. Privately. We didn't announce it on social media. We didn't blast out a second round of invitations. We simply contacted the people we trusted who knew Simone and still remembered the way she once threw a tantrum at my college graduation because no one took a picture of her dress. Or the time she photoshopped herself into the center of a family holiday card. The responses were quietly supportive. A few friends sent texts like, "I'm not surprised, and she's always been like that." It was comforting in a bittersweet way to feel validated, but also to realize that I hadn't been imagining her behavior all these years. People just hadn't said anything. In the meantime, Simone's wedding planning took over the family conversation. Our mom was knee-deep in floral arrangements, dress fittings, and acting as an unofficial wedding planner. I'd see her post on Facebook about helping my daughter plan her dream wedding, and not once did she acknowledge that she had another daughter, about to become a mother. I tried not to let it get to me. I stayed off social media, kept my phone on silent, and focused on preparing for the baby. Clark was a godsend, supportive, calm, and quietly enraged on my behalf. Every time I got upset, he'd rub my shoulders and say, "They'll see who you really are when the dust settles." But I didn't want to wait for the dust to settle. I wanted to control the dust. So I began preparing my own version of that day. Not to steal her thunder, but to light my own candle. Dana had found a small vineyard just outside of Charleston, tucked away off a scenic back road lined with oaks and Spanish moss. It was peaceful and a bit rustic, with a barn converted into an event space that looked like something out of a dream. She told me she'd quietly booked it the moment Simone made her wedding announcement. "I had a feeling," she said. "I knew you'd want a plan B." We kept everything under wraps. The guest list was limited to friends who weren't already tied up with Simone's wedding. A few extended cousins RSVP'd with apologies and quietly hinted that they weren't thrilled with Simone's scheduling choice either. One of my old high school teachers, who I'd stayed in touch with, replied, "Wouldn't miss it for the world. Weddings are common. First babies? They're everything." It helped heal something in me. Still, the tension in my family reached a quiet boiling point. I saw Simone once in passing at my mom's house, where I'd stopped by to drop off a box of old books she wanted for a garage sale. Simone was sitting at the kitchen island, sipping coffee, wearing a silk robe in the middle of the day like she was starring in her own personal reality show. She glanced up at me, smiled sweetly, and said, "Still mad?" I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. Instead, I looked at my mom, who was pulling cupcakes out of the oven for Simone's bridal brunch. "You haven't asked about the baby in weeks," I said. She looked confused. "Well, we've just been so busy. You understand, right? Weddings are so much work." There it was again. Weddings are more important. Pregnancies are boring. Mothers-to-be can wait. I nodded slowly. "Sure. I understand." I left without another word. The night before April 6th, I barely slept. Not because I was nervous, but because the energy in the air was heavy with something I couldn't name. Like a tide about to shift. Clark and I packed up the car early that morning and drove out to the vineyard. The spring sun was warm but not hot, and the sky had that soft, golden hue that photographers love. Dana was already there, setting up tables with little lavender bundles and simple but beautiful place settings. There were mason jars filled with lemonade, trays of biscuits and fruit, and a small 3-tier cake that said "Welcome, Baby Lewis." People started arriving slowly, familiar faces, warm hugs, soft laughter. My Aunt Helen, who had RSVP'd no to Simone's wedding months ago because of a cruise she couldn't miss, showed up in a floral sundress and said, "Cruise got cancelled. So glad I could make it." My cousin Travis and his wife arrived next, both of them grinning like they knew they were doing something a little scandalous by skipping the wedding. More than 30 people showed up, each one a subtle declaration that maybe, just maybe, Simone wasn't the only one worth celebrating. I had just settled into a chair under a draped pergola when my phone buzzed. A message from Dana popped up. Check Instagram now. Confused, I opened the app. And there it was. Simone's carefully curated wedding hashtag Simone and Eric say I do was trending for all the wrong reasons. An anonymous account, using the same hashtag, had been posting photos of Simone from her bachelorette trip, where she'd been clearly flirting with a man who wasn't Derek. There was a screenshot of a DM from her to someone named Bryce, saying she felt trapped and might pull a Julia Roberts. I sat back, stunned. Dana leaned over. I didn't post it. But I might know who did. I didn't ask. Honestly? I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. And just like that, the tide turned. I wish I could say I was surprised by what was unfolding online, but I wasn't. Not really. Simone had always walked the edge of drama, but she'd never been caught in it before. She was careful, calculated. Always knew when to smile, when to cry, when to play the perfect daughter or the misunderstood sister. But she'd never faced consequences. Until now. The anonymous Instagram account had posted 4 new images in under an hour. The captions weren't cruel, they were matter of fact. Timestamped screenshots of flirtatious messages. A group photo from her bachelorette trip in Miami, where she was leaning into a man with his hand clearly around her waist. A comment from an old classmate underneath, yikes. Didn't she say she was engaged back then? And while the account wasn't tagging Simone directly, it was tagging the wedding venue, the bakery, the dress boutique. Every piece of her meticulously constructed wedding puzzle was being quietly exposed. I didn't know who had created the account, and honestly, I didn't need to. I didn't ask Dana or Clark or any of the people who sat around me sipping lemonade under the vines. Because I wasn't thinking about revenge at that moment. I was watching my baby kick inside me while people who genuinely cared about me showed up with hand-sewn blankets, baskets of baby books, and tears in their eyes. I remember sitting in a rocking chair someone had dragged onto the porch of the Vineyards barn, holding a gift in my lap that I hadn't even opened yet. It was so peaceful. And then my phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated. For a second, I considered ignoring it. But something in me needed to hear her voice. I picked it up. Nora, she said, breathless. Where are you? I paused. At the baby shower. There was a long silence on the other end. I don't understand. Everyone's asking where you are. Dana said she couldn't make it to the wedding. Travis and Helen are gone. Even Shannon texted Simone saying she had another event. I didn't say anything. I waited. Did you stop, lowering her voice? Did you plan this on purpose? On the same day? I actually laughed. It came out dry and sharp. You mean like Simone did to me? My mom was quiet again. Then came the familiar, exasperated sigh I'd heard since I was 12. Oh, Nora. This is not the time to be petty. And that's when something in me snapped. I'm not being petty. I'm reclaiming the day she tried to steal. I'm celebrating my child, the one you haven't even asked about in weeks. Did you even know I'm having a boy? Another silence. No, I didn't. You never told me. I did. You just weren't listening. I didn't wait for her reply. I hung up. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty about it. The rest of the shower felt like floating. Not because I was trying to escape what was happening, but because it finally felt like I wasn't being minimized. I wasn't being told to wait my turn, to be quieter, less dramatic, more understanding. I was surrounded by people who got it. Dana gave a little speech halfway through sweet, funny, full of inside jokes and memories of me before I was ever the responsible one. She talked about how I'd been the glue for our friend group during hard times, and how this baby was lucky to have a mother who had spent her life showing up for everyone else. I cried. Openly. Without shame. And when it was over, people stayed. No one rushed out the door to catch a bouquet toss or cake cutting. They lingered, laughed, and helped clean up. A few people even said, "This felt more like a wedding than most weddings I've been to." I don't know exactly what happened at Simone's wedding during all of this. But I heard from a few people later bits and pieces. Apparently, Derek pulled Simone aside during the reception after seeing the posts. They had a loud argument in the hallway outside the ballroom. One guest said she heard Simone yelling, "It's nothing. It's all made up." Derek responded, "You don't get to lie about how you feel and expect me to still marry you like nothing's wrong." They didn't cancel the ceremony. But the photos that came out afterward? Cold smiles. No sparkle in their eyes. No honeymoon posts either. Simone didn't post for a week. That's practically unheard of for her. But what stood out most to me were the DMs I started getting that night. From cousins, friends, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. "You handled all that with such grace. Proud of you for standing up for yourself. That was the most peaceful rebellion I've ever seen." And one from a former college roommate of Simone's, "She's always been like that. She needed this." Later that night, after we got home and I was lying in bed with swollen feet and a full heart, Clark leaned over and kissed my forehead. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "More than okay." He paused. "You think she'll come around?" I thought about it for a long time before answering. "I don't know. But I'm not waiting around to find out." The next morning, I woke up to dozens of unread messages. Some were from people who'd been at the baby shower, sharing photos and thanks. A few were from extended family members who were just now catching wind of what had happened, asking, "Is everything okay with Simone? And did something happen at the wedding?" I ignored most of them. But one message stopped me in my tracks. It was from Derek. "Hey Nora. I know this is weird. But thank you for showing me what I wasn't seeing. I don't think I would have ever known otherwise." That one sat with me for a while. I showed it to Clark. "You gonna respond?" he asked. I shook my head. "No." He figured it out. That's enough. And it was. I didn't need to rub it in. I didn't need to explain myself. Simone had made her choices, so had I. And while I wasn't about to go out of my way to make amends, I also didn't need to gloat. But it didn't end there. The next few weeks were strange. My mother went quiet. No texts. No calls. No, "How's the baby?" Or "Can I come by?" It hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. There's a unique ache that comes from being emotionally discarded by your own parents, especially when you're stepping into motherhood yourself. Every time I thought about picking up the phone, a voice in my head whispered, "Let her come to you. If she wants to." Eventually, she did. About 3 weeks after the wedding, she showed up at my door, unannounced, holding a bag of groceries and a small stuffed bear. She looked tired. Not physically, but soul tired. Like someone who'd finally realized they'd been looking in the wrong direction for too long. "I brought some things," she said, without looking me in the eye. I stepped aside to let her in. She moved slowly, like she wasn't sure she was welcome. Set the groceries down on the counter. Opened the bag to reveal apples, milk, a loaf of sourdough, prenatal vitamins, and a tub of vanilla ice cream, my favorite. She still hadn't said anything meaningful. So I broke the silence. "You haven't asked about the baby in over a month." She nodded, I still cast down. "I know." "Why?" I asked, quietly. "I don't know," she whispered. "I think I got so wrapped up in Simone. I've always been wrapped up in her. She needs more." Or she acts like she does. You never ask for anything. That doesn't mean I don't need anything, I said, more sharply than I intended. She looked up then, and I saw tears already forming. Her voice cracked when she spoke. I was wrong. About the wedding. About the baby shower. About all of it. And just like that, the wall I'd been holding up began to crack. I didn't cry, but I felt something release. Something that had been clenched inside my chest since that family brunch. She stayed for 2 hours. Didn't try to defend Simone. Didn't make excuses. Just sat with me, asked about the nursery, about my next checkup, about how I was really feeling. It wasn't a perfect repair, but it was a start. Later that evening, I got a text from Simone. It was short. Hope you're happy. That was it. No greeting. No punctuation. No ownership. I stared at it for a long time. I typed out a dozen different responses. Deleted all of them. Set my phone down. Picked it back up. Finally, I replied with 3 words, I actually am. I didn't hear back. A few days after that, I ran into one of Simone's bridesmaids, Juliana, at the grocery store. She spotted me in the produce section, came over cautiously, almost like she expected me to yell at her. I wasn't going to come, she blurted out. To the wedding. But I didn't know how to not go, you know? She would have made my life miserable. I nodded. I get it. She hasn't shut up about you, by the way. I raised an eyebrow. She keeps saying you set her up. That you coordinated some kind of smear campaign. That it was all to get attention. I sighed. Let her believe whatever helps her sleep. She's miserable, Juliana added, almost like she was confessing. Derek's basically living in Atlanta full-time. She posts all these love wins photos, but she cries in the group chat at 2 a.m. I didn't say anything. What could I say? I didn't feel good hearing it, but I didn't feel bad either. Some people need to burn through their illusions on their own. Things with my mom got better slowly. She started coming around more, helping me with baby prep, asking real questions, and being present. One day, while folding tiny onesies in the laundry room, she asked something that caught me off guard. Do you think Simone will ever come back from this? I took a long breath before answering. I think she's going to have to decide who she wants to be when no one's clapping for her anymore. My mom looked down, nodded, and said, That's what scares me. Leo was born on a cloudy Thursday morning in late June. He came into the world quiet and calm, with wide, curious eyes and a grip that surprised even the nurse. Clark cried the moment he held him. I didn't. Not right away. I think I was too overwhelmed. Too still. But when they placed Leo on my chest, I felt something in me unlock. A weight fell away that I hadn't realized I was still carrying. It was as if everything before that moment, Simone, the shower, the wedding, all of it just slid into the background, out of focus. My mother was in the waiting room when it happened. She came in an hour later, her face pink and puffy from crying. She held Leo like he was made of glass, whispering things I couldn't hear, and for once, she didn't ask to take photos. She didn't post on Facebook. She just held him. That night, she stayed late at the hospital while Clark ran home to feed the dog. She made tea from the little in-room kitchenette and sat at my bedside, watching Leo sleep. You were a strong baby, she said softly. Didn't cry much. Just watched everything, just like he does. I didn't say anything. I just watched her watching him. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. I haven't talked to Simone since the wedding. My head turned. Really? She nodded. She thinks I chose you. I told her I finally stopped choosing her. I swallowed. That was a big admission. Maybe the biggest she'd ever made. She'll come around, she added. But it won't be soon. I didn't ask her to explain. I knew exactly what she meant. Simone wasn't used to losing. She wasn't used to being the one left behind. And even if she had no interest in motherhood, she hated the idea that my life had moved forward without her approval. I wasn't waiting on her anymore. A few weeks after bringing Leo home, I got a letter in the mail. Actual paper. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. It was from Simone. The letter wasn't long. It wasn't even really an apology. It was more of a reflection. She wrote that she'd felt displaced by my pregnancy, like she was losing her place in the family. That she'd reacted badly, and maybe I didn't want to steal your thunder, maybe I just wanted to hear it for once myself. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't offer to visit. She just said, "I hope you're happy, and I hope he has your eyes." I sat with the letter for a while. Then folded it, tucked it in a drawer, and moved on with my day. Leo is 6 months old now. He laughs like his father, frowns like me, and has this way of looking at people that makes them stop talking mid-sentence. He's healthy. He's beautiful. He's everything I needed after a year that nearly broke me. Simone and I haven't spoken since the letter. She still lives in Charleston, but we run in different circles. I hear that her Instagram is quieter. Derek took a job out of state, and last I checked, she started doing some kind of life coaching course. Maybe she's learning. Maybe not. That's not mine to carry anymore. My mother and I have rebuilt our relationship, carefully. Slowly. She comes over every Saturday morning and brings pastries. She holds Leo like he's the most important thing she's ever touched. She calls me just to talk, something she never did before. It's not perfect, but it's real. And that's more than I ever thought I'd get. If you'd told me a year ago that my sister's wedding would be the catalyst for me to finally claim my own worth, I would have laughed in disbelief. But that's how life works, sometimes. The people who try to dim your light end up giving you the spark you needed all along. So no, I didn't destroy Simone. I didn't humiliate her, or fight her, or go to war. I just chose me. Loudly, clearly, and without apology. And that was the loudest revenge of all.